In the vast canvas of the cosmos, where stars died and were born in celestial dances, there was a planet encased in ice, home to a race as fierce as they were proud, the Chrysalians. This planet, Chrysalia, was ruled by a queen whose beauty was as legendary as her ruthlessness, Queen Ceresthis. Her eyes, a piercing shade of sapphire, mirrored the frozen expanses of her world, and her heart, it was said, was carved from the glaciers that dominated her icy realm. For centuries, Ceresthis had ruled with an iron fist, her command over the Chrysalian military unchallenged, her decisions absolute. The males of her species, formidable warriors and cunning strategists, vied for her attention, each hoping to stand by her side as king. But Ceresthis, with her sharp mind and even sharper tongue, rejected every suitor, every proposal, dismissing them as unworthy of her and her throne. The rejection wasn't merely a matter of pride or preference. Ceresthis had loved once, deeply and truly, but that love had been betrayed. Her heart had since turned colder than the icy peaks of Chrysalia's tallest mountains, and she had vowed never to let weakness, especially that of love, enter her life again. Her subjects whispered of her loneliness, of the sorrow that sometimes flickered in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. They spoke of the queen who had everything except someone to share her vast, cold world with. As fate would have it, it was during the Chrysalian Festival of Stars, a celebration of the galactic alignment that occurred once every millennium, that a new figure appeared, a human from a distant world, whose arrival was as unexpected as it was unannounced. His name was Elian, a scientist and explorer from Earth, who had stumbled upon Chrysalia by sheer chance, his ship having been caught in a meteor shower and thrown off course. Tall and unassuming, with eyes like the green of Earth's ancient forests and a smile that seemed to melt the frost it met, Elian was different from any being Ceresthis had ever encountered. The queen, initially wary of this alien intruder, had him brought before her throne in chains, his ship confiscated, his motives questioned. But as he spoke, with a voice smooth and calming as the ocean, Ceresthis found herself intrigued. Here was a creature not of power or might, but of knowledge and curiosity, who looked upon her and her world with wonder, not fear or ambition. Elian talked of earth, of seas that were liquid and skies that wept rain, so unlike her own barren, frozen landscapes. He spoke of his studies, of his travels to other worlds, seeking not to conquer but to understand. And with each word, each tale shared, a warmth began to stir within the queen's chest, a warmth she had sworn never to feel again. The festival continued, and Elian was granted freedom within the palace under watchful eyes. He marveled at the Chrysalians' technology, at the beauty of their ice sculptures and the resilience of their people. And as days turned into nights, he found himself standing beside Ceresthis more often, not as a prisoner or a suitor, but as a companion, a friend. Ceresthis, for all her strength and command, found herself increasingly drawn to this human. His presence became her solace, his laughter a balm to the wounds she had buried deep. In the stark contrast of their beings, her, a queen of ice and war, and him, a wanderer of peace and green worlds, they found an unlikely harmony. As the alignment of the stars reached its peak, a ceremony was held under the open sky, the auroras painting luminous trails above. It was here, amidst the whispers of her ancestors and the watchful gaze of her people, that Ceresthis faced a choice that could redefine the future of her heart and her kingdom. As the night unfolded, under the symphony of stars and destiny, something within her began to crack, like the breaking of ice under the spring sun. For the first time in a long time, Queen Ceresthis felt the weight of her armor, the burden of her crown, and the possibility of a path not walked, the path of vulnerability and perhaps, just perhaps, love. Under the shimmering auroras, Ceresthis found herself walking alongside Elian along the frozen spires of her palace gardens. The silence between them was comfortable, filled only with the soft crunch of snow underfoot and the distant calls of the night-bound creatures. Elian, with his innate curiosity, broke the tranquility, his words forming misty clouds in the frigid air. "Do these lights always grace your skies?" he asked, his gaze upward. "Not always," Ceresthis replied, her voice softer than usual. "They are strongest during the festival, a gift from the stars, reminding us of the vastness we belong to? Elian nodded, his interest piqued. And yet, it feels like they dance just for us tonight. Cerethes smiled slightly, a rare gesture that softened her usually stern features. Perhaps they do. Their path took them to a viewpoint overlooking the ice-capped city below, its structures glowing ethereally in the twilight. Elian leaned against the railing, his eyes absorbing the sight. "It's beautiful," he murmured, "so different from Earth, yet equally mesmerizing." Cerethes joined him, her arms folding as she regarded her domain. "It is my duty to protect this beauty, this peace. It's a burden that demands isolation," she confessed, her voice tinged with a hint of melancholy. Elian turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. "Isolation doesn't have to be synonymous with loneliness, not if you choose to open your heart to others." The queen looked away, her gaze lost in the icy horizon. "My heart once betrayed me, Elian. I vowed never to let it lead me astray again." "But hearts are strange things," Elian said, stepping closer. "They have a way of healing, of opening up when you least expect it. Maybe it's not about leading you astray but leading you to where you truly belong." Cerethes's breath caught at his words. She turned to face him, her sapphire eyes meeting his green ones, and in that moment, a connection sparked, fragile and tentative like the first thaw of spring. As they returned to the palace, their footsteps synchronized. Cerethes felt a door within her creak open, a door she had locked and barred long ago. The night air, no longer just cold but alive with the promise of something more, whispered of changes yet to come. In the following days, Elian became a fixture at Cerethes's side, not only as a friend but as an advisor. His insights into diplomacy and science brought new perspectives to her court. The Chrysalians, initially skeptical of the human, began to respect his wisdom and his deference to their queen. One evening, as they stood watching the technicians prepare for the closing ceremony of the festival, Elian turned to Cerethes, his gaze intense. "Have you ever considered what lies beyond your reign, beyond the ice and duty?" Cerethes paused, considering his question. "I have always thought my legacy would be one of strength and solitude." "And what of happiness, Cerethes? What of love?" Elian's voice was low, heavy with emotion. The queen felt a surge of fear, a reminder of past pain, but it was quickly overshadowed by the warmth she now associated with Elian's presence. I do not know if I am capable of those anymore," she admitted. Elian reached out, his hand brushing against hers, a simple touch that held the weight of galaxies. "Perhaps, it's not about capability but about choice. And I believe you are capable of far more than you allow yourself to feel." Cerethes looked at their joined hands, a symbol of unity she had never expected to embrace again. The ice around her heart, once impenetrable, seemed now to crack, letting in the warmth of possibilities she had never dared to dream. As the stars shone brightly above, reflecting off the snow in a mimicry of daylight, Queen Cerethes found herself at a crossroads, guided by the light of a star not her own, but no less significant. The great council chamber hummed with tension, its crystalline walls casting prismatic reflections that danced over the stern faces of Chrysalian advisors. Elian stood at the center, his posture calm despite the storm of skepticism brewing around him. Cerethes sat on her elevated throne, her expression unreadable but her sapphire eyes keenly focused. "We cannot trust an outsider with knowledge of our military infrastructure," one advisor declared, his tone sharp. "He is human. Their history is riddled with wars and betrayal. Yet he has offered no act of aggression," Cerethes countered, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "He has shared knowledge of his people's advancements, strategies that could bolster our defenses. Would you dismiss wisdom purely because it comes from a different form?" The room fell silent, the queen's words echoing off the chamber's icy walls. Elian, sensing the tension, stepped forward. "I did not come here to sow discord," he said, his voice measured. "Your queen speaks of defenses, but my intention is far broader. Your world holds secrets, untapped energy beneath the ice, a potential connection to other systems. I wish to study, to share findings that could elevate both our species." Another advisor sneered. "And if we allow you to study these secrets, what prevents your people from exploiting them?" Me, Cerethes interjected, rising from her throne. I am the gatekeeper to this knowledge, as I have been for every decision that ensures our survival. Do not mistake his presence for weakness on my part. Elian turned to her, admiration flickering in his gaze, before addressing the council again. Your queen has nothing to fear from me, nor do any of you. The only question is whether you are willing to look beyond the boundaries you have built and embrace what collaboration could bring. The tension in the chamber didn't dissipate entirely, but the advisors exchanged uneasy glances, some nodding reluctantly. Cerethes regarded Elian with a faint, almost imperceptible smile. He had handled their hostility with grace and conviction, qualities she valued deeply. Later that evening, in the privacy of her chambers, Cerethes leaned against a frost-veined pillar, her thoughts tumultuous. Elian had proven his worth time and again, and yet doubt lingered. Could she truly trust him? Could she trust herself? A soft knock disrupted her reverie. Enter, she commanded. Elian stepped inside, his expression hesitant but resolute. You were incredible today, he began, his voice softer now, lacking the formality of their public exchanges. The way you defended me, it means more than I can say. She turned to him, her eyes narrowing slightly. Do not mistake pragmatism for sentiment. You are valuable to my people, nothing more. His lips curved into a knowing smile. You're lying. Cerethes stiffened, her pride bristling. You presume too much, human. Maybe, he admitted, stepping closer. Or maybe I see something you're afraid to admit, even to yourself. The queen's breath caught, and for a moment, the air between them was electric, charged with unspoken words and buried emotions. You tread dangerous ground, Elian, she warned, though her voice lacked its usual edge. I think it's worth the risk, he replied, his gaze unwavering. You've built walls around yourself, Cerethes, but walls don't keep out the cold. They only trap it inside. For the first time in years, Cerethes felt utterly exposed. She turned away, her composure slipping. You assume much about a queen's burdens? I'm not assuming, Elian said gently. I'm asking. Let me share the weight. Her laugh was bitter, tinged with pain. And what would you do with it, human? Do you think you can thaw what centuries of betrayal have frozen? Not overnight, he admitted. But maybe, given time, we could thaw it together. The vulnerability in his words cut through her defenses like a blade. Slowly, she turned to face him, her gaze searching his for deceit and finding none. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, almost imperceptibly, Cerethes nodded, a silent acknowledgement of a bond she could no longer deny. Outside, the auroras flared brighter, their colors a testament to change rippling through the frozen heart of Chrysalia. The corridors of the Chrysalian palace whispered with the footsteps of those who navigated its icy passageways, the echoes mingling with murmurs of an alliance as unanticipated as the spring thaw. Cerethes, with Elian at her side, faced her council once again, her demeanor composed yet unmistakably altered by recent revelations. Consider the proposition, she urged, her voice resonant and clear, slicing through the chill of the chamber. Elian's people possess technologies that complement our own, knowledge that when combined, could lead to advancements we have yet to imagine. This is about more than survival, it's about flourishing. An elder advisor, his face a map of old scars and wisdom, leaned forward. And what of our sovereignty, my queen? Do we risk our autonomy for the promise of progress? Cerethes's response was immediate, her confidence unshaken. We will craft an alliance that respects our independence while fostering mutual growth. I refuse to let fear of the unknown dictate our path forward. As the council deliberated, the atmosphere thick with tension and potential, Cerethes felt Elian's discreet, supportive presence, a reminder of the personal stakes intertwining with the political. Once the council adjourned, with cautious approval to proceed, she and Elian retreated to the observatory, a place where the stars offered perspective and respite from the weight of rulership. The observatory, with its vast dome of transparent ice, allowed an unobstructed view of the cosmos. Elian adjusted the scope, focusing on a distant cluster of stars. Each of those lights might be a sun to someone else's world, he mused, his tone reflective. It makes our concerns seem both monumental and minuscule at the same time. Cerethes joined him, peering through the scope. From here, it's easy to believe in a universe where anything is possible. Elian glanced at her, his expression serious yet filled with an emotion she had come to associate with hope. Between us, anything is possible. We just have to be brave enough to pursue it. Their hands touched briefly, the connection sparking a warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold metal of the telescope. I used to look at the stars as markers of destiny, Cerethes confessed. Now, I see them as reminders of choices, paths we can take, rather than roads we must follow. The night wore on, the celestial dance above mirroring their own complex choreography of negotiation and nuanced understanding. Plans were drawn, strategies formed, and alliances tentatively crafted, each step forward a testament to the transformative power of trust and shared vision. Weeks passed, and with each day, the alliance between Chrysalia and Earth grew stronger. Technological exchanges brought new energy systems to Chrysalia, harnessing the geothermal warmth lurking beneath the ice, while Earth benefited from advanced Chrysalian shielding techniques, a boon for their exploratory vessels. However, not everyone embraced this new era of cooperation. Dissent brewed in shadowed corners, from those who viewed any external influence as a contamination of their cultural purity. Whispers of discontent swelled into covert meetings, plans laid with careful precision to append what they saw as a betrayal of Chrysalian heritage. One evening, as Cerethes and Elian reviewed the latest integration protocols in her study, a trusted guard burst in, his face etched with urgency. "My queen, an insurgent group has been discovered. They're planning to sabotage the power exchanges tomorrow during the High Assembly." The news struck like a shard of ice to the heart. Cerethes felt the room spin, her grip on the papers tightening. Elian reached out, steadying her. "We'll handle this together," he assured her, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. "Together," she echoed, drawing strength from his resolve. They moved quickly, coordinating with both Chrysalian forces and Earth's delegates to reinforce security and counter the threat. As the High Assembly approached, the palace was a fortress of vigilance, every participant scrutinized, every system checked and rechecked. When the day arrived, tension hummed through the assembly like static, every glance and gesture laden with potential meaning. Cerethes opened the session with a declaration of unity, her voice resounding through the hall, addressing the silent challenge posed by unseen adversaries. "We stand at the precipice of a new dawn, one not defined by isolation, but by the courage to unite. Let us be as steadfast as the ice upon which we stand, as enduring as the stars above." The assembly progressed, the plan's sabotage thwarted by their preemptive measures, and as the leaders of two worlds stood side by side, a new chapter of interstellar cooperation was solidified, forged in the crucible of challenge and the unyielding will to envision a future where fear did not hold sway. As they faced the gathering, the conviction in Cerethes's eyes spoke of battles fought and won, and those yet to come, in the endless pursuit of a harmony as profound as the universe itself. As the High Assembly concluded, the success was palpable, but so was the palpitation of unrest that continued to percolate among the few still resistant to change. In the aftermath, Cerethes and Elian retreated to the privacy of the royal gardens, a serene haven where frost mingled with the vibrant alien flora cultivated to thrive in Chrysalian climes. Elian observed the queen, her silhouette framed against the iridescent petals reflecting the planet's twin moons. "You managed that with unparalleled grace," he commented, noting the barely perceptible tension in her posture. Cerethes allowed herself a moment to watch the moon's reflection in the garden's mirror-like pond. "Grace is necessary when leading, but it does not quell the turmoil beneath," she admitted, her tone revealing a hint of vulnerability. "There are still those who see our alliance as a dilution of Chrysalian purity. It's a fear of the unknown, of change," Elian reasoned, joining her by the pond. "But over time, they will see the benefits. Fear often gives way to acceptance with the right example. Or it festers into rebellion," Cerethes added darkly, her eyes reflecting the dance of light on the water. Elian reached out, his hand brushing against hers in a gesture that was now familiar and comforting. Then we must be vigilant, but also compassionate. We must show that this path we've chosen brings strength, not weakness. The queen considered his words, the calm of the garden helping to soothe the storm that had raged within her since the assembly. And what if it brings danger to you? To us, she asked, the weight of her role and her growing feelings for Elian pressing down on her. We face it together, Elian assured her, his voice firm. Just as we have thus far. Whatever challenges arise, we meet them as allies, as, more than that. Cerethes turned to face him fully, her expression softening. More than that, she echoed, allowing the words to linger in the cold air, imbued with promise. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a royal messenger, breathless and bearing urgent news. My queen, there's been a breach in the laboratory sector. It appears to be sabotage, he reported, his demeanor anxious. The news struck a sharp chord, and Cerethes's brief respite shattered. With a nod to Elian, she commanded, "Show us." They moved quickly through the corridors of the palace, their path illuminated by the soft glow of bioluminescent fixtures, a blend of Earth and Chrysalian technology. Upon entering the lab, the extent of the damage was evident. Shattered equipment, data pads strewn about, a clear message of dissent against their collaborative efforts. Elian knelt beside a damaged console, his fingers tracing the jagged edges of a data pad. It's a setback, but not insurmountable, he assessed, looking up at Cerethes with resolve. But it is a message, Cerethes stated grimly, her gaze sweeping over the chaos. One that we cannot ignore. In the days that followed, security measures were tightened, and investigations into the sabotage deepened. Cerethes and Elian worked tirelessly, coordinating their efforts to not only repair the damage but to safeguard against future threats. Their nights were spent in strategy sessions, their closeness growing in the face of adversity. As they pieced together the identity of the insurgents, a complex plot unraveled, revealing not just resistance to the alliance but a deeper, more personal vendetta against Cerethes herself. The leader of the insurgents was revealed to be a former suitor, spurned and bitter, who had cloaked his personal grievances in the guise of ideological purity. Armed with this knowledge, Cerethes addressed her people, not from the throne, but from the heart of the damaged lab. Surrounded by evidence of both the sabotage and the ongoing repairs, she spoke not just as a queen, but as a visionary determined to heal her world. This attack was personal, aimed at me and at what we are building together, she declared, her voice resonant, reaching every corner of the kingdom via broadcast. But it will not deter us. It will strengthen our resolve. We will rebuild, and we will continue to forge a future defined not by fear, but by the courage to embrace the vast potential we share. The message resonated, turning the tide of public opinion. Support for the alliance strengthened, bolstered by Cerethes's transparency and the visible benefits of the technological integration. Slowly, the culture of fear began to dissipate, replaced by one of hope and anticipation for what their joint future might hold. As Chrysalia and Earth moved forward, the bond between Cerethes and Elian solidified, a beacon of unity in a galaxy often divided by difference. Together, they faced the challenges of integration, their alliance a testament to the power of shared vision and the unbreakable strength of a queen who dared to reimagine the destiny of her people. Amidst the swirling snows of Chrysalia's bitter winter, the palace stood resilient, its spires piercing the heavy gray sky like spears of ice. Within its walls, the integration of Earth and Chrysalian technologies continued unabated, a beacon of progress. However, the shadow of dissent still loomed, a cold reminder of the resistance that festered in hidden corners. In the depths of her private study, Cerethes reviewed the latest security reports, her brow furrowed in concentration. Elian, seated across from her, was engrossed in translating a Chrysalian text into English, his fingers moving deftly over a digital interface that rendered the alien script into familiar characters. "Anything troubling?" Elian asked, noticing her expression. Cerethes looked up, her eyes reflecting the storm outside. "It's the quiet that troubles me," she admitted. "The insurgents have been too silent. It's unlike them to retreat without a cause. Perhaps they've realized the futility of their actions," Elian suggested optimistically. "Or they are planning something far more destructive," Serathis countered, her mind racing through scenarios. She stood, approaching a large, interactive map of the planet displayed on the wall. Her finger traced the lines of power grids and data networks, symbols of unity but also vulnerabilities. Maybe it's time we took the offensive, Elian proposed, joining her at the map. We could use the technology we've integrated to our advantage, turn their potential plotting into an opportunity to strengthen our defenses even further. Serathis nodded thoughtfully. We'll need to be meticulous. Increase surveillance, yes, but subtly. We can't afford to stoke the fires of rebellion. Their strategy session was interrupted by an urgent communication from the head of palace security. My queen, we've intercepted encrypted transmissions. They're fragmented, but it seems a large-scale action is planned. Can we trace the source? Serathis asked, her voice sharp. We're working on it. The encryption is sophisticated, but not beyond our new capabilities, the security chief replied confidently. Keep me updated every hour on the hour, she instructed before cutting the transmission. Turning to Elian, Serathis' gaze was steely. Prepare for a storm, Elian. Not of snow, but of fire. As preparations escalated, the palace transformed into a nexus of activity. Scientists and security experts collaborated, merging earthly digital forensics with Chrysalian cryptographic techniques. The palace, usually a symbol of regal isolation, buzzed with a unified purpose. Days passed with no sign of insurgent activity, the tension mounting like the pressure before a quake. Then, just as suddenly, the storm broke. A series of explosions rocked the northern power stations, plunging half the capital into darkness. In the war room, Serathis and her advisors watched real-time feeds, the explosions more than an attack on infrastructure, they were a direct challenge to her rule. Her eyes blazed with resolve as she took command. Deploy emergency response units. I want those stations secured and the power restored within the hour, she ordered. And get me a status on the civilian areas. I will not have my people suffer. As the Chrysalian forces mobilized, Elian worked alongside Serathis, his earlier days as a military strategist on Earth coming to the fore. Together, they coordinated a defense that was both swift and protective, minimizing chaos. Through the long, arduous night, they worked side by side, their combined strength stemming the tide of crisis. As dawn broke, the power was restored, and the insurgents' plans thwarted, revealing not just their desperation but also their underestimation of the Allied forces' capabilities. In the aftermath, Serathis addressed her people, not from the throne, but from the heart of the restored power station. Behind her, the hum of restored energy was a powerful symbol of resilience. This attempt to divide us has only united us further, she proclaimed, her voice resounding over the broadcast systems. Let it be known that Chrysalia does not yield to terror. Together, with our allies from Earth, we are stronger than ever. Our resolve is fortified not just by the might of our defenses, but by the courage of our convictions. As the people rallied around her, their cheers filling the air, Serathis and Elian shared a look of quiet triumph. The battle was won, but the war for peace was ongoing. Yet, in that moment, they knew they were not just allies but partners in a cause greater than themselves, their bond a testament to the enduring strength of unity against adversity. In the calm that followed the storm of insurgent violence, a deceptive peace settled over Chrysalia. Serathis and Elian used this time wisely, bolstering defenses and deepening the integration of their shared technologies. Their work, once a matter of enhancing cooperation, had become an urgent crusade to fortify against future threats. One afternoon, as they inspected a newly established surveillance outpost on the outskirts of the capital, Serathis observed the technicians at work, their fingers flying over luminescent keyboards, their eyes scanning multiple screens. This is what peace requires, she remarked to Elian, who stood beside her, watching the scene. Eternal vigilance, not just in times of crisis but always. Elian nodded, his expression somber. It's a heavy burden, to always be on guard. But it's necessary, especially now. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Tyrell, head of Chrysalian security forces. He approached with a brisk stride, his face etched with lines of fatigue. Queen Serathis, we've detected unusual activity near the eastern energy fields. It's possibly nothing, but given recent events, Cerethes cut him off with a raised hand. No anomaly is too small. Prepare a team. We'll investigate personally. The decision to involve herself directly was met with protests from both Elian and Commander Tyrell, but Cerethes was resolute. The people need to see that I am not above the risks they face. Besides, I have the best possible protection, she added, her gaze flitting to Elian, who, despite his objections, exuded a quiet confidence in her leadership. The energy fields, vast expanses dotted with towering converters, hummed with power. As they approached the reported coordinates, the signs of tampering were evident: disrupted soil, irregular energy readings on their portable scanners, and a faint trace of foreign chemicals in the air. Elian, equipped with a scanning device, swept the area. There are residues here that aren't consistent with our tech, he reported, his brow furrowed. Someone's been experimenting, possibly trying to create a makeshift explosive or a disruptor. Cerethes surveyed the area, her strategic mind piecing together potential motives. An attack on the energy fields would be disastrous. It would destabilize not just the physical infrastructure but the faith our people have in our protection. Determined to uncover more, they initiated a detailed forensic analysis. The results were unsettling. The chemicals were indeed intended for an explosive, one that could severely damage the energy grid if not detected and disarmed in time. This was a planned act of sabotage, Commander Tyrell concluded, his voice grim. And the sophistication suggests it's not the work of mere dissenters but someone with advanced knowledge of both our and Earth's technologies. The implications were chilling. An enemy within, someone with access to critical data and the expertise to use it against them. The betrayal cut deeper than the threat itself. Back at the palace, Cerethes convened an emergency meeting with her top advisors and Elian. We are dealing with a new level of threat, she announced, her voice steady despite the tension that gripped her. This isn't just about external resistance. We have a mole who could endanger everything we've built. The meeting evolved into a heated debate on security protocols and trust, with Elian advocating for a more sophisticated, layered approach to their vetting processes. We need to consider the possibility that this isn't just a breach of security but also a psychological war. They're trying to create paranoia, to weaken us from within. Cerethes listened, her mind racing with strategies and contingencies. After hours of discussion, a plan began to form, a comprehensive sweep of all personnel with access to sensitive information, coupled with a silent audit of their communications. As the strategy was put into motion, Cerethes and Elian found themselves working late into the night, their efforts a blend of governance and sleuthing. The queen, usually so composed, allowed herself a moment of weariness. I never imagined that leading would be so consuming. Elian, observing her closely, offered a supportive smile. It's the curse of the crown, or so I've heard. But you're not bearing it alone. True to his word, Elian stayed by her side, his presence a constant in the chaos that swirled around them. As the investigation deepened, their resolve hardened, fortified by mutual trust and the shared goal of safeguarding a world that was slowly, but surely, becoming their joint domain. Together, they stood vigilant against the shadows, their bond a beacon in the encroaching darkness. The investigation into the sabotage stretched on, weaving through the labyrinth of palace politics and the newly integrated network of Earth and Chrysalian technologies. Cerethes and Elian became fixtures in the secure command room, their figures often silhouetted against the glow of data screens as they delved into the digital entrails of their society. Late one night, as the twin moons of Chrysalia cast a spectral light over the snow-laden grounds of the palace, a breakthrough emerged. A pattern of unauthorized data accesses traced back to a mid-level technician in the Department of Energy Management, a Chrysalian named Mirek. Mirek has been bypassing the usual security protocols, Elian pointed out, displaying the logs on a holographic screen. The lines of code painted a damning portrait of deceit. Bring him in, Cerethes commanded, her voice a cold echo in the high-ceilinged room. But quietly. We don't need a spectacle. When Mirek was escorted into the command room under the pretense of a routine consultation, his nervous demeanor was the first clue confirming their suspicions. Under the piercing gaze of Cerethes, he faltered, the mask of innocence slipping. "We know about the breaches," Cerethes declared, her tone devoid of emotion. "Explain yourself." Mirek's resistance crumbled, and his confession poured out, a mixture of desperation and misguided ideology. It was supposed to be a demonstration, a warning. They promised no one would get hurt. It was about showing that we're losing our way, letting outsiders control us. "And who is they?" Elian pressed, his expression grim. Mirek hesitated, glancing between the queen and the human, his eyes wide with the realization of his deep mistake. "I don't know all of them. It's a group. Chrysalians who believe we're betraying our heritage. But I swear I didn't realize." "You didn't realize the gravity of your actions," Cerethes finished for him, her voice sharpening like the edge of a blade. "You endangered lives, Mirk. You threatened the peace of our entire world." With Mirek detained and under thorough interrogation, Cerethes and Elian faced the task of addressing the ideological schism that had widened within their populace. They decided on a series of addresses to the nation, both separately and together, to reaffirm the benefits of their alliance and address the fears surrounding it. Elian took the lead on presenting the technological advancements gained through their collaboration, while Cerethes tackled the more delicate political implications. "We must remind them of the strength that unity brings," she asserted during their preparation. "Fear must not be allowed to dictate our future." As they presented their case to the public, using every medium available, from broadcasted speeches to interactive town halls, the mood among the populace began to shift. Skepticism gave way to cautious optimism in many quarters, though pockets of resistance remained. The balance of power was delicate, and the weeks following Mirek's arrest were filled with both forward strides and setbacks. Cerethes found herself often deep in thought, pondering the path ahead. One evening, as she stood on her private balcony looking out over the capital, Elian joined her, handing her a warm drink against the chill. "They listen to you," he said softly. "They see your strength and your dedication. It's working slowly but surely." Cerethes took a sip, her eyes reflecting the city lights below. "It's a fragile peace, Elian. But it's peace nonetheless. We must keep pushing, keep showing that the benefits outweigh the fears." "And what of your fears, Cerethes?" Elian asked, searching her face. "Do you ever fear that we might not overcome this?" The queen was silent for a moment, then turned to him, her expression resolute. "Every day," she confessed. "But I cannot let fear rule me. Not when so much depends on our success." Elian nodded, stepping closer, his presence reassuring. "Then we face it together, as we have from the beginning. Not just as leaders, but as allies, as more." Cerethes looked up at him, her usual composure softened by the night and his words. "Yes," she agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. Together. The night deepened around them, the stars witnessing their quiet resolve. In the vast expanse of their challenges, this moment of unity was a small, bright point of light, a beacon that held the promise of enduring through the storms yet to come. As the seasons turned on Chrysalia, the churning discontent that had once frothed at the edges of society began to settle, but the scars it left were not easily forgotten. Within the heart of the palace, Cerethes and Elian continued their relentless pursuit of a fully integrated and harmonious society, though the balance was precarious. One crisp morning, with the first hint of winter whispering through the air, Cerethes convened a closed session with her closest advisors and Elian. The topic was the introduction of a new civic education program designed to blend Chrysalian heritage with the insights and advancements brought by their alliance with Earth. "The objective is clear," Cerethes explained, spreading out the digital blueprints of the program across the holographic table. "We need to cultivate a sense of shared future among our youth. They must grow up understanding not only where they come from but also the wider universe they are part of." Elian, who had been instrumental in shaping the curriculum, added, "It's about showing them that change doesn't have to mean loss. It can be about gaining, growing. We're not erasing anything. We're building on the foundation of what makes Chrysalia unique." The advisors mulled over the proposal, their expressions a mix of intrigue and caution. One elder advisor, Varek, a venerable figure with deep knowledge of Chrysalian lore, raised a concern. We must be careful to ensure that this does not become seen as indoctrination. The preservation of our culture is paramount, and while we embrace what Earth has to offer, we cannot afford to dilute our traditions. Cerethes nodded thoughtfully. Absolutely, Varric. That's why your role in this is vital. We need to weave our traditions into these lessons, make them a powerful reminder of our roots, even as we reach for the stars. The meeting ended with a tentative approval to pilot the program in select districts, a test to gauge the reactions of both students and their families. Meanwhile, Elian took on a personal project of his own, delving into the development of a new communication technology that would not only facilitate easier dialogue between Chrysalians and Earthlings but potentially other alien species as well. The device, based on adaptive AI, would learn from interactions and improve translations over time, bridging linguistic and cultural gaps. As he presented his prototype to Cerethes, his enthusiasm was palpable. Imagine a device that not only translates languages but also interprets cultural nuances, reducing misunderstandings and fostering deeper connections. Cerethes handled the sleek, palm-sized device, examining its interface. It could revolutionize how we interact not just on Chrysalia or Earth, but throughout the galaxy. Their work, however, was not without its challenges. Reports of isolated incidents of unrest and propaganda against the integration policies trickled in. While less frequent and intense than before, each report was a stark reminder of the undercurrents of dissent still present. Cerethes addressed these incidents head-on, visiting the affected communities, speaking at gatherings, and reinforcing her message of unity and shared destiny. Her presence was powerful, her resolve clear, and slowly, the tide of public opinion began to turn more decisively in her favor. Amid these duties, her relationship with Elian grew deeper, their bonds solidified not only by shared goals but by the quiet moments they stole from their responsibilities. Walking through the palace gardens one evening, under the soft glow of the setting sun, Elian spoke of the future. This peace we're building, it's fragile but it's real. We're making history, Cerethes. She glanced at him, her smile tinged with melancholy. And yet I find myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's as if peace is the precursor to the storm. Elian took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. Then we face the storm together, like we always have. And we keep building, keep striving for that day when the peace is no longer fragile but a lasting reality. As they turned back towards the palace, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a long shadow before them, a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead but also of the path they had already bravely charted together. The deep chill of the approaching winter was felt throughout Chrysalia, a stark contrast to the growing warmth of cooperation that had begun to characterize the interactions between its native inhabitants and their earthly allies. The educational programs had been a success, garnering support from many quarters and instilling a new sense of communal identity that bridged planets and cultures. Yet, Cerethes knew that the true test of their work was yet to come. In the vast assembly hall of the palace, leaders from various sectors, scientific communities, military factions, cultural trustees, and educational leaders, gathered for the annual Summit of Progress. This event, conceived by Cerethes and Elian, was designed to showcase the advancements and address the challenges of their integrated society. As the delegates settled into their seats, the murmur of dozens of languages filled the air, a testament to the diversity that now enriched Chrysalia. Cerethes stood at the podium, her presence commanding silence. She began her speech, not with grand declarations, but with gratitude. Each one of you represents a facet of our society that has embraced change and faced the challenges it brings, she stated, her voice resonating through the hall. Thanks to your courage and commitment, we are not just surviving, we are thriving. Elian, watching from the side, felt a swell of pride. The transformation of Chrysalia was as much her achievement as it was a testament to their combined efforts. When it was his turn to speak, he unveiled the new communication technology to the assembly. Demonstrations of its capability drew gasps and applause, the device seamlessly translating his words into multiple languages, each nuance preserved. The summit continued with presentations on various advancements, from hybrid energy systems that combined Earth's solar technologies with Chrysalian geothermal innovations, to cultural exchanges that had begun to inspire new art forms and literature. However, as the day progressed, a scheduled break provided a moment that would define the true strength of their society. A distress signal from the northern borders indicated a group of insurgents had mobilized, intending to disrupt the summit as a statement against the integration policies. Cerethes' reaction was immediate and decisive. "This summit will not be overshadowed by those who fear the future," she declared, arranging for rapid response teams to handle the situation while the summit continued, undisturbed. Her ability to maintain calm and order reassured all present, and the summit proceeded without further incident. By the time the issue had been resolved, news of the successful de-escalation reached the assembly, further solidifying the trust in Cerethes' leadership and the efficacy of their combined military and strategic initiatives. As the summit drew to a close, Cerethes and Elian stood together, addressing the assembly one last time. "Today, we stood together, not just in celebration of our progress but also in defense of our peace," Cerethes said. "Let this day be a reminder of the strength not of arms or walls, but of united hearts and minds." The applause that followed was not just in appreciation of her words but a recognition of the deep, enduring changes that had been wrought in Chrysalia. As the crowd dispersed, the atmosphere was not just one of relief but of renewed dedication to a shared future. Later, as the sun set over Chrysalia, casting long shadows across the snow-blanketed gardens, Cerethes and Elian took a moment to reflect on the events of the day. "We are building something lasting, Cerethes," Elian remarked, his tone thoughtful, "something that will outlive us and continue to grow." "And to think, it began with a crash landing and a queen's curiosity," Cerethes mused, her smile wistful. Elian laughed, the sound mingling with the evening wind. "The best stories often do." Together, they looked out over the vista of Chrysalia, its cities aglow with lights, a symbol of the enduring flame of cooperation and peace they had kindled. In that moment, the future seemed not just bright, but limitless.